Hi everybody. Welcome to the NRJ. As in like energy. That's the point.
It's high energy in here.
NRJ because Nick, Renee, Jackson, NRJ. I'm just gonna keep saying NRJ. That's the whole 48 minutes. That's the whole thing. But welcome to NRJ. I am Nick.
I'm Renee.
And I'm Jackson.
I think we were a little bit more loose than the first time. Thank you so much for listening in. We just completed our very first episode with the Oscar snubs and sort of all-time Oscar snubs. And today we thought it'd be very fun to talk about our top 5 favorite movies and top 5 favorite performances as well. So I think I'll give the floor to Renee.
Okay, I'm gonna do this from number 5, so ascending order.
Oh, okay.
So I have Good Night and Good Luck,
Ooh.
All the President's Men, Do the Right Thing, Almost Famous, and Apocalypse Now. So it's kind of an eclectic mix.
Oh, that's good. So
yeah.
Can we sort of break this down? So 5, what was it?
Good Night and Good Luck.
Good Night and Good Luck is great.
That's an amazing.
That's great.
I'm a big fan of like the McCarthy era of history.
David Strathairn killed that movie.
Yeah.
He was fantastic. George Clooney directed that.
Yeah, and he's in it for
a little bit.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the best movies about that era.
I think so too. Very, very, very well done. Yeah, well acted.
Yeah,
too.
It's very well acted, especially when you watch clips of the real people.
Mm-hmm.
You see just...
And there's something about the cinematography of that movie is very interesting in terms of... you'll see black and white movies, right? But there are some black and white movies that just look better than other black and white movies.
And this, yeah.
You know what I mean? The black and white in Good Night and Good Luck is very good black and white, as opposed to... I couldn't even give you another example. Like Nebraska. That was a film that was recent.
With Will Forte?
With Will Forte. Mm-hmm. So there's different types of black and whites, I guess, that are more saturated, higher contrast.
Yeah.
Good Night and Good Luck is fantastic.
Yeah, it makes it feel like, I know the 50s wasn't all in black and white, but it almost feel like fits the era and the story.
Well. Mm-hmm.
And they use like real footage of Joseph McCarthy, who was crazy, but yeah, pretty awesome.
Gave that point very well.
I think one of the things I remember about that movie is the cinematography, how they filmed. I mean, everyone smoked like a banshee back then, you know, so it was like not. And the way they filmed, and like you said, black and white, and you got that cigarette smoke floating around.
Beautiful.
It just really adds to the atmosphere of the movie, and to capture that. And I always think about inanimate objects as being part of the characters, and to me that's kind of like
cigarettes are just like an extension of them. Yeah.
And they add so much definition to just a basic room, right? So if it's just a room versus a room filled with smoke, and then if you have a room full of smoke, then you put a light through it, it makes the scene look. You think about that scene in Citizen Kane too, where they're sort of talking about and giving the journalist the assignment of talking to finding out about Orson Welles' character. The smoke in that really adds to that scene in terms of just establishing the reality of the scene and how much people smoked back then, but also just adding depth.
Mystery almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool.
Good.
That
That movie.
Very, very underrated.
I think my first viewing of it was in a high school classroom my senior year, but it's still a solid movie. Even on an old projector, it was still a great movie.
Projectors.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, was it number 4?
Number 4 was another like historical one, All the President's Men.
Oh, that's right.
That's my history majors.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Showing.
No, I think Dustin Hoffman was in that one.
Dustin Hoffman,
Robert
Redford.
Great.
Jason Robards, Martin Bowles. It's
a good cast.
Great cast of characters in that.
And I think before they filmed that, I think Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford knew each other's lines, so they could sort of interrupt each other. There's a lot of interrupting.
There's good chemistry there between the two of them.
Great stuff there.
That's just it's an interesting story in general.
Yeah.
Watergate, I can go into it for like an hour.
Oh yeah.
But I really I especially love. There's a shot. I think it's near the end where they start typing. They start typing up a new thing about Watergate, and then they have Richard Nixon giving his inaugural address, and it's like he's looking at them. Yeah. It's a really good shot.
Yeah.
It's like a.
That's
It's a solid movie. Even though you kind of know the outcome, just the suspense of it is still really solid.
I think that happens a lot when you sort of watch those. That means it's good. When you sort of watch, and I feel that way about Social Network. You'll sort of watch, you know what's going to happen, but it's the story
still,
getting to there.
Yeah.
And if they do it right, then you sort of forget, or there's still suspense in that, you know. But yeah, All the President's Men, very, very good.
Maybe. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I just rewatched it recently. Still.
Any different feelings than how you saw it when you first saw it?
Well, the first time I read it, I hadn't read the book. I only
yeah.
knew like the general story of Watergate, and then I read the whole book that it's based on, and it gives you a new insight.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah.
Yeah,
Richard
no,
Nixon.
and that's interesting too, when you see a movie when you're younger versus when you see it when you're older and you've read the book, or you've just had more things happen to you. You sort of bringing in a new sense of something to the viewing.
Yeah, and not to get political, but the recent rewatch, it's the first time I've watched it since Trump was president, and his whole war on journalism. Yeah, so it's always interesting. Plus,
maybe there should be All the King's Men too.
Yeah, I think Bob Woodward just wrote a book on President Trump, and I really want to read it.
Oh, which one?
Woodward did.
Oh yeah.
It's called Fury.
Yep.
Which I really want to read.
Very popular.
Yeah, I listened to this whole thing that was just Bob Woodward talking to Trump, and Trump just being Trump.
Yeah. No, I feel the pain there too.
Yeah.
There has to be movies made about Trump.
There will be.
The whole thing is one movie.
It's just insane.
But Jackson, do you have any thoughts on All President's Men?
Great film. Our previous episode we talked about Oscar snubs. I'm trying to remember if that won any Oscars that year it came out. They were nominated.
Yeah,
they were nominated,
but
I don't remember, because you think about Dustin Hoffman's performance, you think about Robert Redford's. Like you said, Renee, they feed off each other.
Yeah,
the good chemistry. I don't think either one of them were nominated. If they were, they didn't win.
Right.
And there was a great supporting cast. Jason Robards, and it's like, were any of them nominated?
Sure.
And if they were, did they win?
I'm not sure.
So
I think the good thing about that movie too is like pace.
Yeah, it's just paced perfectly.
Is a fantastic part of that movie.
Yeah, even if you're not like interested in history or Watergate or whatever, it's still fast. It's an interesting. You can still understand it. You can still gather the story, and still you get invested.
Yeah.
Which I think is what a good movie does.
Absolutely.
But I think one thing about All the President's Men is they got their facts before they released their story.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole movie, is gathering the data and the facts. Nowadays, social media, you mentioned the movie social media, but in real life social media, people, it's like they take pictures, and before you know it, everyone's like reacting. It's like, and then 2 days later, it's like, oh, wait a minute, the real story, there's more to the story.
When people already forgot about the last one.
Yeah.
There's already like 2,000 other news stories.
But All the President's Men, the most powerful thing to me was, the whole movie is them getting their facts. Their editor, it's like, before you go and print this, get your facts, make sure you get, sources.
Yep.
And the movie ends with them getting everything. They got their sources. They got the Deep Throat as their source. And the movie ends with all that you hear is the typewriters.
Yep.
And it's like, I'm like, wow, that was just
great ending.
Great editing.
Because they could have centered it around like when Nixon was going through the trial with Congress and the Sunday Night Massacre and everything, but I like that they made it about leading up to everything exploding and everything going to shit. Like,
from their perspective.
I think it's like that movie's kind of a love letter to journalism almost. Yeah, it's just the amazing power of investigative journalism.
Very solid movie.
Yeah,
I liked it a lot.
love that movie a lot.
Yeah.
And then my number 3, we kind of discussed it. Do the Right Thing.
Oh, Do the Right Thing.
It's such a good movie.
Yeah, if you listen to our first one, we sort of kind of gushed about that.
Yeah,
a bit. I mean, what can you say? I mean, it's just very. I think when I think of that movie, I think of style. That's just a very stylistic movie. Before a lot of films that sort of copied that style came out, and he took a lot of risks with that movie.
Yeah.
And it could have definitely not worked. It could have completely failed, and I think maybe a lot of people thought at the time, and maybe it did. But I think it's definitely stood the test of time, and it's studied now, and it's just, I think it's a great piece.
Yeah, speaking on the style of the movie, I like that, and this is like cited a lot. Like when you watch it, it feels warm.
Yeah.
Because it's the hottest day in New York, and it just feels like you almost feel like you're gonna sweat.
Well, that's the thing too. I think
Yeah.
that's a really good movie in terms of giving you a sense of feel and how the characters are feeling based on the temperature. Same sort of thing with Fargo. I don't know if anybody has that at their top 5, but you get the sense of not only the places they go are a character, but the temperature is sort of a character.
Yeah.
The weather conditions are like the character, kind of like Blade Runner, where it's the rain is sort of something that can kind of contribute to that story too.
Yeah, that's a good movie. And then it has
Yeah.
young Gus from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And I like a lot of the topics it talks about because I think they're still relevant today, which is why the movie still holds up. Like gentrification of neighborhoods, especially in big cities like New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that's my number 3.
Yeah. Well, keep going. What's
All right. Number 2 is Almost Famous.
Almost Famous.
Which is,
I actually have not seen it.
It is.
It's good.
It's a good movie.
Good
if
movie.
you really like music from the 70s and it's
And another journalistic
Yeah,
movie.
a journalistic
young,
endeavor.
young journalist wanting to get into rock and roll, and his first assignment is to tag along
Yeah.
with this
kind
this
of
almost famous rock band.
yeah.
Ooh.
I really like it. I think it's based on Cameron Crowe's actual life because he directed and wrote it, and he used to be a writer for Rolling Stone, I believe. And I love some of his other films. Some of his recent ones are kind of like Aloha, but Say Anything I think that's the best 80s teen movie apart from like Back to the Future.
Sure.
Yeah, or
Ferris
Breakfast
Bueller
Club.
or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's in my top 80s movies.
Yeah.
But I really like Almost Famous because it's not like necessarily like a technological advancement in film, but it's still just like a really nice story, and it's really well acted. The characters really,
I've seen
they feel
clips.
like
I
they're
think
people.
the music sort of blends into it pretty well.
The music plays a big part in it.
Yeah. And that's sometimes you'll get a movie where it's like sort of shoved in.
Yeah.
You know, the song is just sort of like
It's just
Coco or something.
yeah.
Yeah. But it seemed like it kind of
Yeah.
had good use of the music.
There's good chemistry, especially between the guys who play the band members, because they used to actually rehearse like they were in a band.
Yeah.
And then I think Nancy Wilson of Heart wrote the original pieces of music that were in there that they performed, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And then we've talked about this one a lot. My number 1 is Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Whew.
People always get surprised when I say that's my favorite movie of all
No.
time because I don't look like.
Yeah, and so like I think too something that we should sort of talk about is like favorite versus best. You know, what about that movie made it like sort of your favorite movie? What did it do?
Oh, okay. So I think I was a sophomore in high school the first time I saw that movie, and I was just like,
Sure.
a teenage girl. My favorite movie before that was Rent.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's in consideration still to this day. I
it's
think.
still
Yeah.
it's like number 6.
Yeah, that's there.
But I think that was my first introduction to just how like amazing films could be, just how much effort and love people could put into it. Because Francis Ford Coppola like had a stroke just because he was trying to make this movie. He was over budget. He was, and then just like the scenery is so beautiful, and I appreciate it a lot because my family is from the country they filmed it in, and I've always wanted to go to the places they filmed, like the river and the performances. Just it's unbeatable. It's even like even a young Lawrence Fishburne. Like I look at him and I see him in The Matrix, but still just like the scene. I don't want to spoil Apocalypse Now too much. I mean, if you haven't seen it, but the scene with the tape from the mother, it's just it breaks your heart. And then there's like a random scene with a tiger.
Yep.
It comes out of nowhere. Yeah. So that movie's. I think that's really where I started learning to appreciate films. I remember just sitting and talking to my sophomore English teacher about that film for like an hour, because he loved it too.
Is that all? 1 hour?
No,
That's
yeah,
enough
like
time.
3,
Yeah.
the whole runtime of the Redux.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my God, the Redux. I can't even.
I don't know, man. I think whenever I think of that movie, I think it's set pieces. There's just this famous moment, this famous moment, this famous moment. I mean, when you think of that part, just the beginning with the fan,
the trees,
and the trees,
doors playing in the
and the doors playing with that, it's just striking. And I think it's a completely maybe another debate, but I think it's one of the best war movies, let alone Vietnam movies. And there's a bunch of really good Vietnam war movies.
I think it really highlights. I'm getting all historic nerd, but it really highlights like the chaos of Vietnam, not just like in Vietnam, but also at home when you get like those bits and pieces of the U.S. Within the war, like the Francis Ford Coppola playing a documentary guy. You can see like there's what the U.S. wanted their citizens to see of the war versus
and the
what
effect
was
on
happening.
the soldiers too, you know.
Yeah,
as well.
Because Lance with the puppy.
And there's also just big, just human psychological questions.
Yeah,
that they
like
ask
these aren't heroes.
Yeah.
And even like the most decorated one of them is almost the antagonist of the film. It's Marlon Brando, and they say like he was so decorated, like he could have been like he was sent by, or he had a special order that was approved by Johnson, and it's crazy. So.
And I think too, there's just something about the performance of Marlon Brando too. He didn't care.
Yeah, no, he got paid $1,000 a day, and he purposely did not.
But at the same time, this is how good of an actor he was. It's one of his most memorable roles. It really is.
Probably my favorite of his ever.
And it's very short, too.
Yeah, he's only in it for, I think, at the very most 30
and
minutes.
A lot of the film leads up to him. You
There's
know, he's at this. He's sort of the character you're looking forward to the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when you think of that movie, you think of certain images that are just so striking and so, powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember I had a speech class in high school, and I chose to do his little monologue about the horror. And I mean, it's not as intimidating coming from me, like.
I'm sure people
still,
still take it,
still pretty good. Hopefully.
When the words themselves are scary.
Yeah, I think I got an okay grade on that speech. Maybe just like your voice is a little high for it, but.
Yeah. Well, at least you didn't have to shave your head.
True.
That's
good.
That's good.
Didn't gain like 300 pounds.
Yeah. At least you read the book too.
Yeah.
Or something like that, So that's good. Jackson, do you have any thoughts on Apocalypse Now?
Great film. A lot of supporting cast roles that were great. You got Dennis Hopper in there.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford for a second.
Harrison Ford for a second.
2 seconds.
Robert Duvall.
Larry Fishburne.
Larry Fish, he was so young, so new that
they called him Larry.
They called him, the credits are rolling in. Larry Fish,
I really like. I don't know the name off the top of my head. The actor who plays, I think his name in it is Chief, the guy who like leads the boat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's the tension between him and Martin Sheen is so palpable.
Yeah.
Like there's like something.
Yeah, Martin Sheen did a great job in it too. I think.
Yeah, I love. It's hard because then I started West Wing's now like my favorite show of all time,
right.
and I started watching it I think a year later, and it's just like I look at Martin Sheen and I'm like that's
a pretty good repertoire right there. Yeah.
That's the president of the United States.
Yep. Yeah, and he was also there.
In swamp water.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how we got the
that's
the vote. Well, great. I think that's a very, very respectable list there. And again, I think we were talking about favorites versus best movies that we think. I think our list would be a little bit different if it's sort of the ones that we think are these are the best movies that we think are the most influential. This has impact on movies in general. And sort of, these are the movies that have influenced us as people, as appreciating film. It made us really, really have just a good time watching films, So, yeah, I love your list, Renee. That's a great list.
Thank you.
Sir Jackson.
Well, my top favorites, and my favorites are films that I could watch over and over and over and not get bored with. They're movies that it's like, I saw this last month, but I'm going to watch it.
Yep. It's on TV,
I'm in the mood for it. It's like I could quote with this. So, and I really can't say one is number one or number two. So I'm going to do them in alphabetical order.
Sure.
Ooh.
Casablanca.
Ooh, yeah. Oh yeah.
The whole movie, you could quote the whole thing. I remember one of my girlfriends were watching it, and I'm quoting the whole thing, and she goes, "Why do we have to watch this when you know it?"
Yeah.
I go,
why don't you just do it? Save us some money.
Just act out the whole
thing.
Just act out the whole movie.
You could pass as a very good Humphrey Bogart.
But it's like that's why I love this movie, and that's it's like I wanted to share that movie with her because everything
means a lot.
It has an impact on you.
Yeah, it's just again, you look at the cast. You got Peter Lorre, you got Humphrey Bogart, you got so many wonderful actors playing small parts, and there's Sidney Greenstreet. It's just a great film.
I think something that's underrated about Casablanca, if anything, is the cinematography in that movie. I think some of the coolest shots you can think of, and I think actually some of it was influenced by noir, and some of it was filmed with German expressionist stuff like Nosferatu and things like that. There were a lot of shadows in that movie, and that seems sort of interesting because a lot of movies have tried to do what Casablanca has done and failed because it touches on a lot of stuff. It touches on a lot of it gets kind of political sometimes. It gets really romantic at some points. It's about loneliness. It's about violence. It's about a lot of stuff. And so intertwining all these things and sort of making the main point of it being the romance between these two is very hard to pull off. So I think that's something to attribute to the screenplay of that.
The sacrifice that they make. You think about that, the sacrifice that Rick and Elsa make. It's that whole speech about we're just being we don't matter in the world. They have to go their separate ways for Lancelot could go on and get the resistance going to fight the Germans, and they sacrifice their love to the greater good.
Absolutely.
That's another thing, aspect of the film that I really like. Again, I could watch this over and over. Alphabetically, Citizen Kane. This is a film I saw in college here at the University of Illinois, in a film class. Took a film class, and it's like, oh geez, we're gonna watch some boring films here. Citizen Kane, what's it? And after seeing Citizen Kane, it's like, I gotta see this again.
Yeah.
This.
You're not bored at all.
You're not bored at all. I mean, Orson Welles has so many camera angles. The way he films things, you're approaching the sleazy bar. You come up over the roof. You like go through a window. It's like how does he do this? It's like this is incredible stuff. And so how he filmed it, the whole story of like Rosebud. What's the mystery of Rosebud? And everyone's like, oh, that's. It's more than just this object. It's what he could have been. It represents lost youth. So Citizen Kane is again one of those movies where I could just sit and watch and it's like, oh, I didn't, and I catch something new every time. And I think that's another thing with my favorite movies is when I catch something. It's like, how did I
why you can watch it over and over again. There's something new to enjoy every time, and there's a new camera angle, or there's a new something.
It never gets boring because we're always looking for the new thing.
And just for something to come out that long ago, 40s, still hold up, and it's still really fresh. It's a fresh movie. There's a lot of energy, jubilance, a lot of sorrow. It touches on a lot of things, and I think one of the underrated things about that movie too is Orson Welles himself, performance. A lot of when you're younger and an actor has to do. I was a theater studies major. I had to do this sort of sometimes myself. You have to play older people when you're young. It's very hard to do it and make it believable. And I think he did a better job than most people I've ever seen when he's a younger guy playing an older version of the character. Just those scenes where it's him and his like I think third wife, in his mansion. It's just so haunting, and I think one of those things that makes the camera influence the performance is just the space between them. And there's a lot of different things that he plays on with space. And I think one of my favorite shots from that movie too is when the opera singer is performing, and he just raises up over the rafters, and you see the lions and stuff like that, and it's one of the guys goes over the nose and sort of and indicates without saying anything. Telling story through images, which is the point of film, that she's not doing well. So I think that movie says so much about how to tell a story visually for that time. I'd second to that, really.
And it's still relevant today. I mean, the whole thing is about a man of power getting more power, and then the collapse. I mean, the isolation. you get all this power, and what does it get you?
Yeah.
Not a lot of happiness, isolation, loneliness. So it's a story that's still relevant today. And next on, going alphabetically, Godfather Part 1 and 2. I'm going to pretend Part 3 never existed.
So
you're
we all do.
kind of
Yeah.
Part 1 and 2 together.
Yeah.
You're kind of cheat the system
it's
here,
one of
Jackson.
those. I just can't decide which is better. I mean, both of them.
That's an episode for later.
Yeah, you want to talk about sequels being better than the original. It continues the story.
Yeah.
So I mean, you look at it as one solid story. Family again, power.
Yep.
Family of power and great actors.
Great cinematography too.
Yeah.
Great music. Just great things. About it.
Great things about it. So that's up there. It's one of those movies where I could watch over and over and over again, and one of those where you could sit along and quote.
Yeah. And the thing too, like we said with the other ones, you don't get bored with it. It's 3 hours long, each one. Put those together, it's like 6 hours. It seems like it was like 1 hour because of just how well paced it is. It doesn't waste time, with other side stories or anything like that. It's very much about this person, and the characters are so rich, and it really is just a testament to how good a family story is. I think that's another part of it too, is the family, and that's It's interesting putting one of the most sacred things that we have as humans, family, and putting it with some of the most nasty things you can do with murder, with crime and all that sort of stuff. It balances things and asks great philosophical questions.
I always think of the scene from The Godfather Part 1. It's not the best scene by any means. It's the scene where I think it's the oldest son, Sonny, goes to fight his brother-in-law. It's like the worst fight scene. Like it's but it doesn't ruin the movie for me. I think that's what makes it so good. Is it can have those moments that are very dated, and you're kind of like, that's not very convincing, but still it doesn't like detract from how amazing the film is.
I think some of the really good things still kind of counteract some of the scenes that are kind of maybe a little bit outdated, maybe. I mean, you want to talk about iconic first scenes too, and first shots. The wedding, and just that first boardroom talk where he has the cat just plopped onto him from Francis Ford Coppola like a second before he said action. It's just a true testament to how influential that movie was, and it's 70s, when that comes out, and that, at the time that was the highest grossing movie of all time when that came out. And it was just sort of an interesting reflection of that decade, because you're just sort of like, okay, violence and R-rated sort of, all these sorts of things are what people want to see. It's done really well, but it's just sort of an interesting reflection on like how, sort of like superhero movies today are, the most popular. What does that say about us as a culture these days?
I think the theme of like family and violence, I really like. This is kind of weird. I really like the scene where he dies because like you expect him to die in this really violent way because he gets shot down. I'm not saying which character, but I feel like everyone's seen The Godfather.
If you're listening, you haven't seen Godfather.
He dies in like what I think is the most peaceful way possible. Like he dies with his grandson with him, like playing with his grandson in the garden, and this is kind of weird. It's like the way you want to die almost, like just so peacefully, and you don't expect that for that character, but that he gets that is, I think, it's interesting, and I think it displays a lot of the themes of the film.
I think too, it's cool, that scene in particular is very cool with the rest of the movie. It's an interesting point in the movie where it's like, oh, okay, well there you go. That happened, and it just shows you how random that can happen too.
Yeah, you don't expect it.
Sort of appreciate, whenever you see The Godfather, I think you watch it for a certain performance. You watch it for Marlon Brando's performance and Al Pacino's performance. But when you watch, one of those two guys, hit the dirt, it's very shocking, and you're just sort of like, oh wow, there's no more.
I think that's what kind of took away from The Godfather Part 3. It's just kind of well, I mean, a lot of things took away from The Godfather Part 3.
I think every franchise gets one.
I mean, I love Sofia Coppola as a filmmaker, but in that movie, it's just, oh my god.
Yeah, just not there.
Dad should not have put her in that.
No, I think that's like nepotism
Like
at its
Steven
worst.
Did Steven Spielberg put his wife in one of the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies, I think? In Temple of Doom, I think.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of awkward whenever people do that. It's kind
Yeah,
of like,
feels a little on the nose.
yeah.
I'm a huge zombie fan.
Ooh.
So the other film that's on my top 5 favorite is Night of the Living Dead, the
That's-
original,
oh.
George Romero.
Oh, yeah.
This basically changed the whole zombie genre horror thing up to the point. There were zombie films before, but they were your traditional voodoo style zombies. You know, the true villain of the movie would reanimate dead people, and they would go off and do their bidding. You know, either kidnapping
Something,
people,
yeah.
kidnapping people. George Romero takes this ghoul-like type thing, turns it into a flesh-eating thing now, and it's like, and if you get bit by him, you're gonna become one.
Yeah. So many tropes have been established because of them.
So being a zombie movie, I love it. The other thing that's really great about this film is it was done in the 60s. Our hero is an African American lead
Right.
character.
Yeah.
George Romero was ballsy
Yeah.
to place the actor into this role.
Yeah.
I'm sure when people saw it the first time and they see the scene where the redneck guy that's holed up in the basement, he starts slapping around, I'm sure a lot of people were like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But George Romero addressed a lot of social things, so you could look at this zombie film as kind of a social comment too on what's going on at that time in America.
Absolutely.
We got the civil rights movement going on. There's a lot of protesting. Vietnam War is going on. We got your rural America versus your urban America. So there's a lot going on, and he's saying a lot in this really low budget film that because of the gruesomeness at that time, a lot of people banned it. It's like, oh, we can't watch people eating flesh off of bones and things like
Different
that.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So to me, again, this is a movie I could watch over and over again. Out of his zombie films, it's probably not. I would put maybe Dawn of the Dead as his best one, but this is one I will watch over and over and over again.
It's a lot meeting.
Yeah.
And I think too, there's something about when you think of a movie, you'll think of like a certain thing with that movie, and it's like, oh, you wouldn't necessarily think of that as like a social commentary. But I also feel that way about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is actually on PETA's website as a movie to watch for vegetarianism. So it's just one of those things where it's like you wouldn't expect that movie to be with that, but that's what it sort of was tackling, and you just sort of think it's this violent movie about zombies or mass murderer in Texas or something, but it really has a meaning to it, and I think if you look deeper into those sorts of things, it really can be pretty rewarding.
I always think of Shaun of the Dead because I love that movie.
Oh,
I've loved that
that's a
movie
great
since I was
movie.
a kid. Like
Zombieland too is a great
Zombieland's good.
And there's a sequel coming out, too.
coming out.
Yeah.
Very
10
exciting.
years later or something. Trying to get the original cast back together.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
It's a good movie. I like it.
Don't know if they're going to get Bill Murray back and something, but
Gotta act fast.
Gotta act fast,
He's
yeah.
a treasure.
yeah.
He is. He was
That's
just
a
in
good time
Isle of
about
Dogs. He was a
Oh,
dog.
yeah.
Yeah,
So cute.
last one on my list is Seven Samurai.
Ooh,
That's
I'm
That's a good
a
movie.
huge Kurosawa fan. Again, a film that I saw here at film class. Never saw a foreign film before. I saw this, and this opened my eyes to foreign films. I just started watching a lot of his films all over again. Hidden Fortress I just watched the other night. Jimbo I just watched.
Jimbo.
It's like
Great.
Seven Samurai. This opened my eyes to films from other countries. if it wasn't for Seven Samurai, I probably would this be. It's like, I got to read subtitles. What?
Oh, yeah.
But and there's so much going on. It's the editing was the one thing that really stuck with me with this, especially the scene where they're trying to get everything ready to defend the village, and the bandits show up, and we have this wonderful shot where he edits all the Seven Samurai rushing to the village to get to their post. Same time. To me, that was this one of those scenes. It's like, wow, this is incredible.
60s?
50s. I want to say 50s.
Yeah. My dad's a big samurai guy. He's also a big Western guy, so like Seven Samurai, and then
well, it's sort of similar, but just different
Seven.
parts of the world, I guess.
Yeah,
he
used to go. He told me he used to go to his grandma's house every night or every afternoon for lunch during school, and she would let him watch like a samurai movie or a samurai show.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, he's a big fan of those, so that's what I always associate. But those are really good movies,
They're
honestly.
very good.
Which is interesting. You mentioned westerns because Akira Kurosawa was a big fan of John Ford.
Yep.
Western.
Surgers.
Surgers and all that. So he was influenced by John Ford. He makes Seven Samurai. John Stiegel, forget who directed it, but The Magnificent Seven comes out, so we go full cycle, the full circle.
But you can
there.
see the influence of those two genres on one another, even now.
Yeah,
honestly.
and there's something about, I think Seven Samurai influenced Star Wars a lot in terms of just how the concept design of some of the villains was inspired from that too. So it can cross-bound, a lot of different genres.
Rashomon, I think that's how you say it. That's influenced a lot of movies in the U.S. Even to this day.
Yeah, I think that's just a very underlooked genre. I think people sort of think about that part of the world and that the movies that they offer, it's usually like kung fu movies and that's it.
Yeah. It's creepy Japanese horror
movies, or anything like
Nightmares.
that. But I think when you really look at it, there is just great cinematic material.
They are very good at making films.
Oh yeah.
The Asian. There's this Asian movie. I had to watch the trailer for a class, and I showed it to my dad, and he's been trying to find it, and I've been trying to find it for him ever since. It's an Indonesian Western, which is really cool, because one of the main guys in it, he used to be an actor for those Western town things, and it's like this story about the French overtaking of Indonesia and these brothers seeking out revenge. So it's like almost like a samurai movie combined with a western. Yeah, so it's still like a very hot genre today over there.
I mean, and there's TV too. One of the things I love is Samurai Jack.
Oh yeah,
it's such a great animated thing, and I think there's just that movie has a lot of influence on multiple genres, which is just a very, very, very cool thing. Do you have any other?
That's my top. Those are my top 5.
That's a very good list.
Yeah.
So if that's on TV, you're just gonna watch it.
I'm just gonna watch it.
Wow, that's good. All right, well here we go. Here's Nick's big old list. I think I should actually have it on my computer here and be prepared. I'm gonna cut this out in post. So my top 5 movies is number 5 is Her. It's a more recent movie with Spike Jonze and Joaquin Phoenix. It's just a very cool commentary on where do we go from here with technology and
how attached
are we to it, and how attached can we be to it, and what's that relationship like, and there was something a little bit hopeful to it for me too, because a lot of the times when you think of AI, it's sort of like iRobot taking over the world, scary stuff. But this sort of had a much more chill version of it, and much more.
Yeah, it's not big scale.
Not big scale.
Yeah.
And I just love the tone of it. I love the tone of it. I love the colors with it. It's a very visually pleasing movie. Very low saturated.
I think that's someone we didn't touch on was Joaquin Phoenix for Oscar snubs.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think he's been nominated for that one. I think he was nominated for Gladiator and The Master or something like that.
He might have won for Walk the Line.
Walk the Line, he won.
Okay.
Yes, he did.
So he hasn't been snubbed
entirely. So he
entirely.
hasn't been snubbed entirely. No, he had a good one. Yeah. But no, Her's just a great movie, and I think good performances. Scarlett Johansson did a really good job in that movie. Interesting music too. It's just Spike Jonze is one of those guys that makes a world pretty well.
Yeah, I always associate him with the Weezer music video.
Yeah,
where,
right.
Buddy Holly.
Yeah, it was good. It's very good.
It's a good music video.
Mm-hmm. And Where the Wild Things Are is very interesting too. It's just he's very good at, you know, he has his mode. So does Wes Anderson and sort of, you know, all these sort of new directors. It's just a very cool movie about just relationship with technology. I like it. It's very touching and endearing. My fourth one is Space Jam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that.
It's not like
I didn't even see that.
It's not like I'm wearing a Space Jam shirt or anything.
That is a childhood movie.
That's a big childhood movie, and that's something that I was thinking about too with favorites, is like something that kind of resonated with me when I was young, and I still sort of watch and enjoy to this day. One of the things I wanted to talk about it too is, you know, Space Jam's awesome. It's great. All these great things happen, and a great soundtrack. The thing that ruins it for me is the things that happen with R. Kelly.
Oh, yeah,
you know
recently,
what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah, so it's sort of this thing of like, oh, great, I have this childhood movie, I love it.
And then R. Kelly.
Then R. Kelly sort of, you know...
Space Jam, that's a good movie.
I think it's very underrated.
It's very much a nostalgic movie. Like, I mean, it's not gonna make like any AFI list.
But it's still, you know, just something that makes you happy.
Yeah.
And just you have a good time watching it. It's just a very fun movie. I think that's why I like it a lot.
I remember always getting sad at the scene where Charles Barkley's lost his ability, and then he goes and plays with kids, and he can't shoot. And I was like, poor Charles
Mr.
Barkley.
Basketball
Like,
Jones plays. Yeah.
You don't know who he is.
He just kind of looks like him.
Yeah.
He just like walks away.
He is Charles Barkley. Please appreciate him.
Oh, I just love Charles Barkley just in general.
And I love movies where we take live action and merge it with animation.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Roger Rabbit's
great.
And you know, it's and they make it believable. It's like, yeah, you got Michael Jordan playing basketball with Bugs Bunny, and you believe it.
Yeah, I know.
It's
really
like, and they go, wait a minute, no, one's a cartoon and one's.
And that's a tribute to Michael Jordan himself. I mean,
Yeah,
you got to think, like most athletes
more.
in movies are not that good, and like Michael Jordan wasn't like Oscar worthy, but like he was okay. You know what I mean? In order to really convince himself that these things were talking to him, and he had to play basketball with nothing around him. It's a green screen room with him and Bill Murray. That's it.
It's good.
So I think that's just one of those cool technical feats at that time. Was very, very, very cool.
Yeah.
Again, one of the best soundtracks to a movie. And
The opening is just...
The opening's so cool.
Yeah, you really believe Michael Jordan got folded up into a basketball and thrown around by a bunch of cartoon monsters.
And it's just a great thing about, you know, following your dreams too, and just friendship as well. Newman's in it.
Newman in that movie, he's really good as like that kind of whiny guy that just follows him around. Like he's good at that. I don't know.
That's his niche sort of.
That's his,
the weird guy in the 90s.
Typecast.
Yeah, big typecast. But that's one of my favorite movies. And then of course I gotta go complete weird 180 departure. Star Wars. The original Star Wars is probably number 3 on my list. I don't know what you could say. I mean, it's
good movie.
It's that or Empire Strikes Back usually for people, and I choose the first one just because it had a lot more influence, and I think that one in particular is just about the collaboration and how beautiful collaboration is with movies, and how, you know, it wasn't that good in the first cuts.
Yeah.
It was not a good movie in the first cuts of it. They really had to amp up the visual effects for it, and John Williams saved that movie with the score. And just the sound effects with it too were excellent. You take the sound effects out of the movie, it's a different movie. The editing was fantastic too. The wipes, all the wipes, and then just those great cinematic just title cards that explain everything. Flash Gordon.
Those are iconic.
Very iconic, and I, you know, it's just that first one. It's just very, very classic. Star Wars. Yeah.
And your special effects are low tech. Kind of a lost art form in Hollywood now is mats.
Yeah.
Where you take this huge glass pane, you paint on it, the scenery, and then you like put the action kind of like right in the middle.
Yep.
That scene where Obi-Wan is like out on this, you know, the heart of the Death Star. and you're looking at this huge interior thing. That's a painting on a piece of glass.
Yeah.
And now we have computer animation that can do all that now. And I think about some of these movies that I love to watch over and over, and I kind of pick that out. It's like, oh, that's a matte scene. It's like, oh, unfortunately, there's not too many people that could do that nowadays.
Yeah.
So you know,
It's a lost art. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the whole special effect for the time was.
Oh, and I still think they're really good these
They're
days.
really
hold
good.
up.
There's a lot
They
of
hold up.
so
talent that was and work into those things, and you appreciate every frame of those. You know?
And everything now is, I don't want to say it's too easy for filmmakers, but you know, now we have computer animation that does everything that Lucas had to do to make this a believable film.
Yeah, and some of it's better than what we get now. Because there's like the whole Uncanny Valley issue with
and it's
special
just very
graphic design.
sterile to look at. Your eye's very good at detecting what's fake and what's real.
But
And
Star Wars feels like it feels real, especially when you're a kid. Like you,
Yeah,
that happened.
you know, and it's just again on the basis of fun. It's a lot of fun to watch Star Wars. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of adventure to it. It's just a great time. You never leave a Star Wars movie with like well, the new ones you do.
Yeah.
Frown on your face. But the original ones, you know, I don't really like Return of the Jedi that much. I think that was a little bit
It's very
overrated.
80s.
It's very 80s, and it's just the Ewoks. I can't get past Ewoks.
You don't like the Ewoks?
Yeah.
I can't get past Ewoks.
They remind me of my dog because I have a Shih Tzu. He looks like an Ewok.
They're cute. They're cool. They're cool to
But
sell toys, but it's just I couldn't.
They're not a threat.
And I like the idea behind it. I like the idea of these prehistoric creatures being the Empire. This giant machine. I always liked that, but I think just the concept kind of fell a little bit flat.
Yeah, I think they tried to like get some of that magic back with those weird little puffin things and the new ones. And those were kind of creepy, kind of hard to look at.
Yeah, and then Chewbacca's like eating them or something like that. Yeah.
There's one of them in the Millennium Falcon just squawking. We don't know what's going on.
Coming to a store near you.
Yes.
You know, everything just seems so sold. You know, like forced.
The first one's good because you could tell they weren't trying to make a whole universe.
Yeah.
It has a pretty definitive end. Like you could just watch that first one, and they get the medals or whatever.
And originally he had it as one giant thing, but the producers told, and I think that's why the first one is so good, and the first trilogy is so good. He had to listen to producers, George Lucas. A lot of the times in the prequels, he reigned supreme. No one challenged him, and he got to run all the shots, and we know what happened there. The original ones, he had the great producer, I think Gary Kurtz was his name, and he worked with him with American Graffiti, and he was just sort of always combating him of like, let's make this palatable.
Yeah.
Originally, Han Solo was supposed to be green, and him with flesh, and Luke Skywalker was supposed to be older, and so just all of these things, and don't get me wrong, George Lucas came up with the ideas and came up with the overall arc of everything, but you know, it's the producers and everyone, the collaboration.
He's one of those guys that needs to be reined in.
I think so.
It's just because he goes a little too out there.
I think he does, and I think
Yeah.
he loves Joseph Campbell a lot. He loves big picture stuff. He loves just the cyclical nature of storytelling. But I think when it comes to specifics about certain characters, it'll sort of fall.
You give him free reign, you get Jar Jar Binks.
You get Jar Jar
back
Binks.
flipping Yoda.
Flipping Yoda. Yikes.
And that's I have the original Star Wars on VHS.
Oh.
Unfortunately, my VSH player died, so I can't ever watch these again unless I can find. But I have Star Wars on DVD, but it's the edited and
the new
improved,
cut.
the new cut.
With extra
And
crap
it's like,
in it,
you know, and I'm watching. It's
yeah.
like, no, it's like, how do I get my VHS
Yeah, I know.
back? It's like, give me this story. I want this version of Star
Yeah.
Wars. So
Oh my
yeah,
God.
I hear you. It's like, you know, don't mess. That
Don't
drives
touch
me.
it.
That drives me nuts when directors is like, I'm gonna go back and do the director's cut, and I'm gonna make it better.
The only director's cut that's really good is Blade Runners.
Yeah.
That's it. Really, I mean,
Yeah.
it's I don't know.
Even Redux for Apocalypse Now is just too long.
Yeah.
It's like I don't need to see him in a rubber plant thing,
Yeah,
like in a rubber
it's
farm. It's not
weird,
necessary. It's like
yeah.
20 minutes.
What would you do that? You know, there's deleted scenes for a reason. You know,
Yeah.
and I agree. The need for George Lucas to adapt and add new technology onto it. So I think he got so obsessed with the fact that other movies were beating him financially. And so he was like, the only way to do that is to add spectacle to it and add something new to it. Because when Jurassic Park came out, when Titanic came out, he was just so angry about the fact that those movies were doing better financially, which is not why you make movies. Someone needs to call Hollywood and be like, you don't make movies for money, you should make them for artistic, you know.
Yeah, you kind of lost that.
You know, and that's, I think, why the first one holds up for me, is because that truly was, you know, something
Just
that
the guy making a film he wanted to make.
and everybody wanted to add to it, and everyone did such a great job adding to it, you know, in post. Because originally, man, if you look at some of those first edits of that movie, it is just hard to watch, and it's so different, especially when there's like on-set sound effects and you don't get the
You get the
know.
original voice of Darth Vader, the guy who
Right,
was in the suit,
right.
and it just didn't
James
sound
Earl
right.
Jones is such a
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
That's probably one of the funniest stories to me in film, is that guy didn't know until he went to go see
he
the
thought
movie.
he was gonna actually be the voice.
He was like,
for
okay,
that.
here I am, I'm
Yeah,
ready.
No,
And then, that's not my voice.
it's not very good at all. But yeah, that Star Wars to me is it's just got to be one of my favorites. And number two, Star Wars took a long time. That's just a big movie.
Yeah.
Dark Knight. You know, we talked about it last time. Just a movie that impacted me sort of the same way that with you, Renee. It really just makes you appreciate film. For me, the blockbuster, and how good a blockbuster can be, and how good a big budget thing. Okay, we have the most money. Let's make the best thing that we can make with this story that we have.
I like that they didn't just rely on the goodwill purely of it being Batman.
Right.
They actually made, like, even with Batman Begins, they went out and tried to make the best one.
And it was set in reality. They were like, let's make Batman as real as we can, and what would a real life Joker be like? And that's, you know, and I think it has, arguably, I think this might have to be the next episode because I think we're running a little long on time, but yeah, I think it just has one of the best performances I've ever seen from Heath Ledger. I think it's in a cast with Gary Oldman, Michael Caine, Morgan Freeman, Christian Bale.
Yeah, Heath Ledger, like when he first got cast, I think people were very iffy because
that's what they do.
the only other roles I can think of Heath Ledger are like Brokeback Mountain and 10 Things I Hate About You, which are very different.
Good movies.
Yeah, they're very good films, but they're
Yeah.
not like
They're not
evil
bad.
characters or.
And so that's sort of interesting to think about Joaquin Phoenix now, and sort of like you're sort of like I hope they don't. And that's another thing of like just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Because Heath was great, and then they added Jared Leto's,
God.
and then now it's Joaquin Phoenix's, and you know, and you're sort of like.
The problem with Jared Leto's was like he had the goodwill because he had just won an Oscar.
I know.
And then like the first picture came out of him with the grill and the tattoos.
It was so
and it was
like superficial. Looking.
Yeah,
It was
it's
just
like-
about look at me, I'm the Joker.
It's hard. I think it was kind of hard to. He was never gonna match Heath Ledger, but they kind of dropped the ball on that one.
I don't know. Yeah, and I think too, just about Dark Knight in general, I love just the screenplay and transitions. You want to talk about transition? One of my favorite bits was when he said, "We burned the forest down." Michael Caine's character was like, "Oh, how did you find that guy in Burma?" He's like, "We burned the forest down." Goes to Harvey Dent with half his face burned off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those transitions where it's just wow, that was
So seamless.
so seamless and just so has a lot of weight to it. You know?
Talking on the reality of that film, like I really like that Batman isn't this like universally loved hero in that universe.
Yeah.
Like there are people who think he's almost a villain and that he's
And they touch on that in like Tim Burton's, but it's not so much of a part of the story as it is in Dark Knight. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I think it's just one of those movies that it's around this guy, and that guy is just you can't take your eyes off him. It's just such a magnetic performance, and very, very good score too by Hans Zimmer. That's very, very underrated, I think. So that's number two.
Yeah, you compare that to like the Adam West Batman.
Oof, man.
It's a very big contrast.
And, you know, again, the times. You
Yeah.
know, it's very dependent on, you know, that's what it was for the time. It was TV too. But then when you get to 2008, you have like $150 million in IMAX cameras to make this realistic Batman. You know, they did a great job. So
It's like look at the Caesar Romero or Romano
yeah,
Joker with like his
right,
mustache that he refused to shave off, so they oil painted it.
Oh,
It's just
it's so funny, and I think Mark Hamill's actually one of the best Jokers.
his voice is just,
so good.
it's
great laugh too.
Yeah.
Great laugh. But Jack Nicholson was good for the world. Tim Burton had.
yeah. We don't think about Jared Leto. We just
Not Jared Leto. I won't go on that.
I
No. But Dark Knight, yeah, it's great. I think it's the best superhero movie of all time.
Yeah, my brother's a big comic book guy, so I remember he was the reason I watched it for the first time, and he's like, "Be ready." And I was like, "Okay."
and that's a movie. I mean, there's big quotes in that one too, and there's just that year that it came out, it was so big. It was just, like, people couldn't see that movie enough just because of the effect that it had, as well as it was Heath's last movie. And I think a lot of people sort of give Heath sort of trouble in terms of the fact that he passed away, so the Oscars is super evil. When you look at
I don't think it was.
when you look at that pool that he was with for the Oscars, like one of the second runner-up was Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder.
Oh.
Yeah. So that, I mean, like, out of that pool specifically, like Heath Ledger had to have won, even if he was alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
it would have been like there would have been an outrage if he wouldn't have won.
Oh my gosh.
Alive or dead.
Yeah, either or. One of the best performances ever. And then I rounded out with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Very fun movie. Again, fun.
Another comic book related.
Another
film.
comic book. So I don't know what that says about me, but I'm like that guy from The Simpsons.
The comic book guy. Just need the
my favorite
ponytail.
movie is The Dark Knight. Scott Pilgrim's just, again, a fun movie. Fun movie with great transitions in it. Just a great, energetic movie is what I would describe that movie as. And it just, whenever I watch it, it gives me a sense of like espresso for my creative juices.
Espresso Royale.
Espresso Royale and stuff. I don't work there, but it is just a jolt. It gives you just a creative jolt. It's just something that's very just interesting to look at. You know, and it merges animation a little bit too with its transitions as well, and great sound effects as well. Great funny bits in it as well. I think Michael Cera's perfect with the cast in it. And it's just again a very fun movie with video games. Video games are a huge part of that movie.
It's funny that the comic book thing was mentioned because Chris Evans is in it and Brie Larson, who are now both I think they're both going to be Marvel superheroes.
Yeah,
well,
Captain Marvel and Captain America, both captains.
Yeah. And then I remember the first time I saw that movie, I thought Macaulay Culkin was in it because he and his brothers look so alike.
Oh yeah,
face.
his roommate. Yeah, it's so funny. Yeah, no. Just one of my favorite parts of that is the Seinfeld bit, it's just random audience laughter and all that sort of stuff. But just the visual jokes and the sense of, like what we talked about with Citizen Kane, is the sense of telling the story through visuals.
Yeah.
And jokes through visuals, not just saying something funny, but like doing something funny.
That's like a landmark of Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
That's something he's very good at. And I watched this whole video about how that's been lost in modern comedy films because you see films like Bridesmaids and they're funny, but it's just like there's no.
I think every frame of painting on YouTube. I think
it's good. It's
very good.
That's a very good YouTube channel to watch
really
about videos.
They had a really good one about Buster Keaton too.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's it for me. Maybe we should do this in part 1 and part 2.
It's pretty. Because then we still have performances.
You still got performances left. So maybe we should just sort of separate this. We didn't know it would take this long, but I think we had a great time.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
A lot of good movies.
We hope we sort of influenced maybe having you guys have a list, because I think it's always a great conversation starter, and I've started a lot of my friendships with people because of films and just having something to talk about, just having an arsenal of films ready to go. Having a list, and I think having a list just makes you stand out from everyone else, as opposed to Transformers, my favorite movie.
I really like that in the same conversation we discussed like Citizen Kane with Space Jam.
Space Jam, comparable movies, I think, But yeah,
that's the great thing. Everyone has their favorite. I mean, bad films. I love bad films.
Oh yeah, we can talk about bad films for a while.
Westerns, monster, zombie. It's like Yeah, everyone has
Bad
a
romance
favorite.
movies too.
Yeah, bad romance. Everyone has a favorite, and you could just, like you said, start up a friendship just talking about what you love.
Yeah, that's a great thing. Just have it, and that's a positive thing too. Is just sort of like, I have this thing that I really like. Oh, and you really like it too. It's just, I think it's a really cool thing to sort of, what you were saying is in terms of just not getting ourselves away from phones and getting ourselves away from media and squares and politics
too.
and things that separate us and things that put us together, which is just an appreciation of culture and what we like and what we don't like and why we don't like it and all that sort of stuff.
Because I mean, with like politics and stuff, it's like, I feel this way, and I definitely don't feel this way. But with movies, it's like, even with bad movies, there's something to talk about, that you can kind of agree on and disagree on, even if you guys don't agree on what's a good movie, what's a bad movie.
And that's the thing too that I love about movies is just there's so many of them. How these could probably change tomorrow. These favorite lists, and so that's always the fun thing is there's always something new. There's always something new to talk about. Whether it's and it seems like we have sort of niches of films that we like. We're sort of more like historic photojournalists or politics. I'm sort of more comic book, weird.
Bugs Bunny.
Michael
Jordan is the basketball.
Maybe I don't know what that says, but and Jackson's more about more classic movies and things that have resonance with him that sort of really impacted the culture.
Yeah.
And so what that means to me is it says a lot about who you are in a very interesting way. And it's just cool. It's just cool. It's just cool to have conversations about this, and we hope that we've, at least sort of entertained people that maybe have their own top lists or gather their favorite movies so that they can sort of talk about it with anybody.
Yeah.
And that's the point.
That is the point.
So, well, thank you everybody for listening. Anybody got any last words or anything? Napalm.
Newman.
Thanks for everybody for listening to the NRJ podcast. I tried to make it sound really cool, but it wasn't that cool. But anyway.
Put more energy in NRJ.
NRJ. Oh. But thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.